today we are going to discuss a really interesting concept which concerns literature, English language. So this is really important to understand that when you are a reader, when you love reading, you have to dive into the different details of reading and books for that matter. Who doesn't like reading, right? We all love reading books. And those who don't like reading, let me tell you, you haven't found out the right book for yourself. All right. So talking about books, it reminds me that I love reading, right? And different types of books, different styles and different topics and all. So this made me think that all books are not the same, right? Whichever book we read is completely different from the other. For example, just let me tell you that if we give you same food every day to eat, how would life be? It will be so boring. Day one you can eat, day two, day three, and then you'll be like, I'm so bored. I can't eat that food again. It's so boring. It's so monotonous, right? Who likes things like that? Nobody, right? So that's what books are. All the books are not same. Every book is different from the other, and there is something different about them. Sometimes it can be the characters, sometimes it can be the topic, the information it gives, the kind it looks like, and there's so much more. So to differentiate between different types of books is going to be what it's going to be our topic for learning today. All right. So let me show you. Here we go. I'm going to show you this presentation where we are going to discuss our very important part of the day. Here we go, slideshow from the beginning. Yeah, so let's do this. Here we are, Venice Drive International School, and our learning objective for the day: exploring how stories of books are different from each other. So this is going to be our learning point, and this is what we are going to achieve hopefully by the end of the session. We are going to target these two lines and read them again, exploring how stories or books are different from each other. Just read that again and try to grasp it, and then we'll go ahead. So let's see, let's brainstorm. Brainstorming is a very, very favorite technique of mine, where there's a storm in your brain full of ideas, and whatever idea and whatever the thought that comes into your mind when I say certain words or certain lines or any one concept, you have to shoot that out without thinking, am I right, am I wrong? Nobody cares, okay? Whatever comes to your mind which makes sense relating to that topic, shoot it out, okay? So are all books or stories we read the same? Okay, so what comes to your mind? Are they all same? No, they cannot be. If they're going to be the same, then it's going to be so boring, as I told you, and monotonous, and nobody likes that, right? Can we differentiate between them? If yes, how? How one book is different from the other? How can you differentiate? What are those points? What are different types we know? What do we call them? Exactly that. What are the different types we know? Do we know what the different types of books? Sometimes we have stories or books that tell us about a mystery. Sometimes it's a criminal case. Sometimes there's a story about a fairy. Sometimes it can be a story about two animals talking to each other. Sometimes it's going to be about kings and queens and princesses. And some books are just like word meanings, dictionaries, thesaurus. So all books are different from each other. But what do we call them? What is that one word, one term used for that? And here comes that word: genre. Genre is a French word that means style. Any literature is differentiated based on the style it's written in. It's not necessarily I'm talking about today English language. It can be in any language, Greek language or Spanish or anything. Any language or any literature, you can apply this concept, genre. It means style. So you see there are 5 major genres right in front of you on your screen. and we'll talk about them and discuss them briefly. So the first is play. A play, a story for stage performance by actors. This is also known as drama. Whenever you perform in front of an audience on a stage, or without a stage for that matter, even in your classroom, when there's a script, when there are dialogues between the characters, that is a play. So that is one genre of English literature or any literature. Then there is non-fiction. True stories of actual events or characters. Non is no, and fiction is anything imaginary, right? So non-fiction is not fiction. True stories of actual events. Biography. Biographies are about the life stories of people who have existed. For example, biography of Mahatma Gandhi or any famous personality or any personality for that matter. Autobiography is a biography written by the person himself. For example, I write about my own life. So it's real life, it's true events and true characters, and there's nothing imaginary about it. So I'm writing about my own life. It's autobiography. Information. There are books just for information. There are encyclopedias, there are dictionaries, there can be anything of that sort, atlases. They're all informational books. So they're all real and they have a real true things in them. Newspaper, every day we read in the morning, it tells about the real events going on in the world and it gives us information. And then there are reference books that tell us about how things, different types of references we take from different books for. Then we have fiction. Fiction, as I told you, as we all know, right from earlier grades, you must have been exploring. Fiction is one of the most famous and the most dearest to all the readers in the world. So fiction is imaginary things, imaginary stories, invented stories with imaginary characters and events. The elephant can have wings, the fox can sing, and the birds can roar. So this is all fictional and it's all imaginary, right? So in fiction itself, there are subcategories. There are different categories of fiction. There are realistic fiction, whereas there's imaginary story, but the characters are like real humans, humans acting like humans, and animals acting like animals. Okay, it's like realistic fiction, a made-up story, but it has all realistic people, realistic events, realistic settings, all of that. Then you have science fiction and historical fiction. Historical fiction is all about kings and queens. Once upon a time, there was a princess living in a castle all alone, and she had long hair, and she would drop her hair out of the tower where she lived, and her mom would fetch berries and all, and then they would climb back to the tower using her hair. Does it remind you of any kind of story? I'm sure there's something clicking in your mind, so just keep that with you. We'll come back to that later. So we have science fiction. It's all about science, sci-fi, all chemicals and all physics and stars and all of that, and laboratories, all of that kind of stuff. Then you have fantasy and fairy tales, such a dear topic to my heart. Fantasy and fairy tales, where you are talking about all the fairies and creatures like unicorns. This is all imaginary, beautiful mermaids exist in this kind of fiction. And then there is mystery. There is mystery. Mystery tells you all about criminal cases or some kind of secret treasures. All of that comes in mystery. Then you have poetry. Poetry, words arranged in metrical pattern, often use rhyme words in an imaginative style. Poetry is all about words and your narratives put up in a singing pattern or rhyming pattern that is very different from other types of fiction, non-fiction, play, and all genres. Poetry is very different, and it's more rhyming, and it's more beautiful and in a singing manner. Okay, and then you have folktale. Folktale is basically an anonymous, timeless, and placeless story that is originally told rather than written. It's a spoken story. Like your nana, nani, dada, dada, your grandparents, all of them, when they tell you stories, it's a folk tale. It's not a story which is printed in a book or anything. They heard it from their forefathers, so now they're telling you, and then later on you will tell your coming generations that once upon a time my daddy told me the story, so I'm telling you that story. So you get it? Folk tales, they don't have really proper settings or any characters or any kind of pattern. You know, if somebody heard from their grannies, they might just modify it and send it, okay, forward to the coming generations. Anyway, so these are the 5 major genres of literature, and the one we are going to focus today is fiction, which is completely imaginary. And within fiction, I have taken fairy tales and fantasies for today. These stories are written for children, included magical characters like fairies, elves, dragon, fun. Then there's some examples: Cinderella, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland are examples of fairy tales. Fairy tales are all about fiction and imaginary characters, and they're all fantasy based. Some famous fairy tales are Cinderella, Aladdin, Snow White and Seven Dwarfs, Pinocchio, Beauty and the Beast, The Jungle Book. So these are such famous fairy tales which have been so famous right from my childhood, and even now when I tell these stories to the students ahead, and they all love it. And these are just evergreen stories. Read and create. So after learning about these main points, let's just read and create our own fairy tale. So I have one beautiful story here. What we're going to do is we are going to read it together, and then we'll try to insert different options given below, right below the exercise that we have in front of us. And these options are open-ended. You can choose any of the 3. You don't have to use all 3, you have to choose any of the 3. So this will create a different story for somebody who's using first option from number 1, and a different story for somebody else. So we'll have different patterns in the same story that we all are going to create together. All right, so let's start reading from line number 1. One day, a dash was walking in the forest. Who was walking? A little girl or a little boy? Okay, a little boy. One day, a little boy was walking in the forest when a horrible what? A wolf, bear, or dragon? Okay, a horrible dragon appeared. There was a scream, ah, and Dash shouted, "Help! Help me!" Who shouted? There's number 1 clue given again. So that number 1 means that we're talking about the same character that we introduced on line number 1. So that is the little boy. Little boy shouted, "Help me," and ran through the forest. Suddenly, another third one, rabbit, monkey, or snake. Okay, we'll take monkey. Suddenly, a monkey arrived. "Quick, follow me," it said. They went along a secret path by the river and at a castle, palace, or fortress. Okay, palace. So suddenly a monkey arrived. "Quickly follow me," said. And then they went along a secret path by the river and arrived at a palace. "Now you're safe. Goodbye," it said. A door opened and again number 1. So what was our number 1? The little boy. A door opened and the little boy went in. It was dark and there was a long tunnel. And the end of the tunnel, there was a tower. The little boy climbed the stairs of the tower, pushed open the secret door, and saw a huge black box. As if by magic it opened, and inside there was gold. Okay, there was gold. But then the secret door opened again, and a huge, angry number 6 troll, ogre, monster. Okay, monster. Again, a huge, angry monster came running into the room. At the moment, the monkey appeared again. It shouted, "Abracadabra," and they escaped together back to the forest. "Thank you," said the little boy, because it's number 1 again. "You are welcome," said number 3 was monkey. "I'm sorry you didn't get what was number 5? Money." Okay. So then actually said the first one is little boy, "Put some in my pocket before the monster came. Now my family and I can live happily ever after." So you see, we have created a beautiful fantasy story right in front of us with these different options that were given right below. My purpose of giving this task was to tell you how a beautiful short fantasy story should look like. In the first line itself, there was one day a dash was walking in the forest. So the character has been introduced right in the first initial line, and then there was a problem that also was introduced in second line itself, that what appeared? A dragon appeared. So there was a scream, and then Dash shouted, and help me, and ran through the forest. So you see, there is a character, there is a problem, and then there is the second character appearing after First paragraph gets over, so immediately the second character also has been introduced. So when you are creating your own story, always keep in mind the beginning, middle and end. These are the basic step of any story that we have read and learned in earlier classes and earlier grades. And we have to keep that in mind always, that our stories should always have a proper character, proper setting, a problem, then it should move on towards a solution, and that will be the end of our story. So a beginning, a middle and end are the proper things that are needed to create a story, any type of story, whether it's a fantasy or a fairy tale or any type of fictional story that we are talking about. So this is giving you a proper overview. Now what we are going to do is that I'm going to give you a little complicated task. Choose a prompt and write a fairy tale. Now we will all write a fairy tale. I'll give you 10 minutes. And in those 10 minutes, you have to create a story from these two, one of the two prompts. You can choose any one of these, okay? So the first prompt is, a courageous soldier must resolve the 3 riddles to defeat a creature. So I've given you a soldier character, problem, 3 riddles, and he has to defeat the creature. So problem B, solution also is there, and the character is also there. In the second one, I'm a magic tree, say the magic words and you will see. Now this one is a little different and a little challenging. So you have 2 options in front of you, a little easier one and a little challenging one. So it's up to the learners that they want to choose whichever task they want to take up, okay? So for this, we are going to use Padlet. There's a link right in front of you. I'm going to send this link to you personally as well. So as soon as we'll click on this link, we'll enter the Padlet link, and then there you can create your own story. You can type it down, and all of us can see it there, collaborate there, and we can rate our stories as well over there, okay? So let's just click it and see what stories we have got here. This magic tree, the challenging one, I'm really excited to see who would take that up. Okay, so here opens our Padlet link, and if somebody has contributed their story, it will show up here. So it will slowly load up and we will see. So this is how the Padlet looks, and we have a story right in front of us. I am a magic tree, say the magic words and you will see. So let's read it together. A long time ago, a little boy was walking through a park. Okay, so there's a character and there's a setting. In the middle of the park, there was a tree with a sign on it. The sign said, I'm a magic tree. Say the magic words and you will see. Okay, the boy tried to guess the magic words. He tried abracadabra, supercalifragistic, expialidocious, tantra, and many more, but none of them worked. So these are the usual magic words that we always hear in the stories and the movies that we see, right? I get reminded of Harry Potter here, and there are such great spells in that, and they're so interesting. Expelliarmus and all of that. That's such interesting ones. We'll discuss those magic words also. Let's see who all remember how many magic words from Harry Potter. Anyway, let's get back to the story. Exhausted, he threw himself on the floor saying, please, dear tree. And suddenly a big door opened in front of the trunk. Inside everything was dark, except for a sign which said, carry on with your magic. Then the boy said, thank you, dear tree. With this, the inside of the tree lighted up brightly and showed a pathway leading to a big tower of toys and chocolate. The little boy brought all his friends to the magic tree, and they had the best party ever. This is why people always say that please and thank you are the magic words. Exactly that. So these are the magic words that always work. Abracadabra and all of these things, they don't really work in real life, but the real magic words are please and thank you, and they always end up working. So we have a star rating here. We can give any star rating we want, whether 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. Okay, we can give the rating to our peers, our fellow learners in the group. And then here we are. So after we are done writing our story, our follow-up task for the next class would be explore and retell. What we are going to do is inquire with your parents about their favorite fantasy story and narrate it in the next class. We all have to go to our parents after this class, ask them, tell us about your favorite fantasy story, that maybe a favorite from your childhood or something that your parents must have told you, and you have to retell the story in the class tomorrow. We'll talk about that. It should be about 2 to 3 minutes, not more than that. Okay, so keep it short and sweet, and I'll be waiting for your interesting stories. I'm sure your parents have some really amazing stories to tell you all. And that will be an interesting task for all of us to engage and communicate with each other. Thank you very much for all your attention and engagement, and hope to see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.